Kira Chen walked through the curved silver halls of the Galactic Union Academy and felt every eye turned toward her. The station called Veridian Prime hung in the darkness between three star systems, and it served as the most famous school in known space. Young beings from 100 different worlds came here to learn together, to understand each other, and to build the future of the Union. But Kira was different from all of them. She was human. Humanity had joined the Galactic Union only 47 years ago, and most alien species still knew very little about Earth or its people. Kira had won a competitive scholarship to study xenobiology here, and she had arrived 3 days ago with a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of hope. She wanted to make friends and learn about the amazing creatures that lived across the galaxy. So far, the friend-making part was not going well. The other students moved away from her when she entered a room. They whispered to each other in languages her translator could not catch. They stared at her with their many different eyes, and she saw something in those eyes that made her stomach tight. Fear. She did not understand it at first. She was just a 19-year-old biology student from Vancouver. She liked tea and old movies and taking pictures of birds. What could possibly be scary about her? Then she had accessed the Academy database and looked up the official classification for her species. Humans Class 7 Pursuit Predators. Threat level, extreme, native to a death world designated Earth. Known behaviors include pack hunting, persistence predation, and environmental adaptation. Exercise extreme caution. Kira had laughed when she first read it. Then she realized it was completely serious, and she stopped laughing very quickly. Now she stood at the entrance to Classroom 7, where her first real class would begin. The room was shaped like a half circle, with seats rising up in tiers around a central platform. Holographic projectors hung from the ceiling, ready to display whatever the professor needed to show. Students filled most of the seats already. Kira saw the insected Velthari with their gleaming shells and clicking mandibles. She saw the Drelmari, whose blue-green skin glistened with moisture from the humidity suits they wore. She spotted the bird-like Kethari, their feathers bright with color, their eyes sharp and watchful. And in the back corner, she noticed a small group of Urani. The Urani were perhaps the most gentle-looking species Kira had ever seen. They had soft gray fur and large dark eyes and long ears that could turn in any direction. They reminded her of rabbits in a way, though they walked upright and had 4 arms instead of 2. Everything about them spoke of prey animals. The nervous movements, the constant watchfulness, the way they huddled together for safety. When Kira entered the room, every Urani pressed back against the wall. Kira felt her heart sink. She chose a seat in the middle section, far from the Urani, and she made herself as small and quiet as she could. She did not want to scare anyone. She was here to learn, not to be seen as a monster. "Excuse me," said a soft voice. Kira looked up and saw one of the Urani standing at the end of her row. The small alien was trembling visibly, but she had not run away. Her large eyes were fixed on Kira with a mixture of terror and something else, something that looked almost like curiosity. "Yes?" Kira asked, keeping her voice gentle. "Is it true that your species hunts by following prey until it dies from exhaustion?" Kira blinked. That was not the question she had expected. "Well," she said slowly, "our ancestors did that, yes. A very long time ago. We do not really do that anymore." The Urani's ears twitched, "But you could, if you wanted to." "I mean, technically, I guess. I have never tried. I am more of a sit-on-the-couch type of human, honestly." The Urani stared at her for a long moment. Then, very slowly, she moved into the row and sat down 3 seats away from Kira. This was still closer than any other student had come. "My name is Yili," the Urani said. "I am Kira. It is nice to meet you, Yili." Before they could say anything more, the professor arrived. Professor Thesic was a Velthari, and he was impressive even by the standards of his species. His shell was deep black with patterns of gold, and his four arms moved with precise grace as he took his place on the central platform. His compound eyes swept across the classroom, taking in every student at once. "Welcome to Apex Predator Classification," he announced, his voice resonating through the room. "In this course, you will learn to identify and categorize the most dangerous species in known space. You will understand their behaviors, their hunting methods, and the threats they pose to civilized beings." Kira noticed that several students glanced in her direction when the professor said the word predator. "We begin," Professor Thesick continued, "with a detailed examination of one world in particular, a world that has produced more dangerous species per square kilometer than almost any other planet in the Union's records." He touched a control, and a blue-green sphere appeared in the holographic display above the platform. Kira recognized it instantly. "Earth." "This is the human homeworld," the professor said, "and over the coming sessions, we will examine exactly why the beings who evolved there are classified at the level they are. We will look at their cohabitants, their evolutionary pressures, and the predators they faced and became." The classroom fell silent. Every student seemed to lean forward with horrible fascination. Yili made a small sound of fear beside Kira. Kira sank lower in her seat and wished very much that she had chosen a different class. But something told her that running away now would only make things worse. If the galaxy was going to understand humans, then maybe it needed a human here to help explain. She took a deep breath and prepared herself for whatever would come next. She had no idea just how strange the coming days would be. The holographic display hummed to life, and the first image of an Earth creature appeared above the classroom. Professor Thesick stood beside it with his four arms folded, watching his students with careful attention. The creature in the display was a lion. Its golden fur seemed to glow in the light, and its mane framed a face built for killing. The hologram showed its teeth, its claws, and its powerful muscles. Data scrolled beside the image: weight, speed, bite force, kill methods. Several students made sounds of alarm. "This is called a lion," Professor Thesick explained. "It is one of the apex predators of the human homeworld. It hunts in groups, bringing down prey much larger than itself. A single bite to the throat can kill in minutes." The Cathari students shifted their feathers nervously. One Drelmary raised a webbed hand. "Professor, you said it hunts in groups, like the humans do." "Correct. Pack hunting is common on Earth. Many species there have developed this strategy." The professor changed the image. Now a wolf appeared, its gray fur bristling, its yellow eyes sharp and hungry. More data appeared. The distances wolves could travel in a single day, the way they worked together to exhaust their prey, the strength of their jaws. Kira watched her classmates grow more and more tense. She wanted to say something, to explain that wolves were actually quite beautiful and important to their ecosystems. But she stayed quiet. She did not think it would help right now. The next image made even Kira feel a small chill. A saltwater crocodile floated in dark water, only its eyes and snout visible above the surface. The hologram pulled back to show its full size: 6 meters of armored death, a creature that had survived unchanged for millions of years because it was already perfect at killing. One of the Drelmary students stood up and walked quickly to the door. His gills were fluttering with distress, and his skin had gone pale. "I am sorry, Professor," he called back. I must leave." Professor Thesick nodded with understanding. Water-dwelling students often find this section difficult. You may review the materials privately later. Kira felt terrible. She had grown up watching nature documentaries about crocodiles. She had never thought about how alien species might react to learning about them. But the professor was not finished. "Now," Thesick said, "we come to one of the most dangerous creatures on the human world." The hologram changed again, and a massive shape appeared. It stood on 4 legs, covered in thick brown fur. Its head was enormous, with a long snout and small eyes. When the hologram showed its mouth opening, the teeth inside were the size of knives. Its claws curved like hooks, each one longer than a Urani's entire hand. Ursus arctos horribilis. The display read, common name, grizzly bear. This creature, Professor Thesick said slowly, can weigh over 400 kilograms. It can run faster than most ground vehicles. Its claws can tear through metal. Its bite can crush bone like dry wood. The classroom had gone completely silent. Yili was pressed so far back in her seat that she seemed to be trying to disappear into it. Her large eyes were wider than Kira had ever seen them, and her 4 hands were gripping each other tightly. Professor Thesick turned to look directly at Kira. "Miss Chen," he said, "is it true that humans share territory with this creature?" Every eye in the room turned to Kira. She swallowed hard. "Yes, Professor. Grizzly bears live in several areas where humans also live, in North America mostly." "And is it also true," the professor continued, "that humans enter the territory of these creatures willingly, for purposes of recreation?" Kira could feel the disbelief radiating from her classmates. "Yes," she admitted. "We call it camping. We go into the wilderness and sleep in tents and cook food over fires. It is actually very popular." The silence in the room became somehow even deeper. A Cathari student in the front row turned all the way around to stare at Kira. "You sleep," he said slowly, "in cloth structures in the territory of a creature that can kill you with one strike, for fun." "We take precautions," Kira said weakly. "We store our food properly and make noise so the bears know we are there. They usually leave us alone." "Usually," the Cathari repeated, "usually." Professor Thesick made a clicking sound that Kira had learned, meant thoughtful consideration among the Velthari. "Let us continue," he said. "I have saved a particularly interesting specimen for last." The hologram changed one more time. The creature that appeared was much smaller than the bear. It had 4 legs and a long tail and fur that could be many different colors. Its ears were pointed, and its eyes faced forward with the focus of a hunter. When it opened its mouth, sharp teeth gleamed. Felis catus, the display read, common name, domestic cat. "This," Professor Thesick announced, "is perhaps the most successful predator on the human homeworld." Kira blinked in surprise. She had expected maybe a shark or a big snake, not a house cat. "The domestic cat kills an estimated 1 to 4 billion birds per year on Earth alone," the professor explained. "It has driven multiple species to extinction. It is an ambush predator of extraordinary efficiency, and it possesses retractable claws that stay sharp throughout its life." More data appeared. The cat's night vision, its flexible spine, its ability to fall from great heights and survive, its hunting success rate. "And here is the most remarkable fact," Professor Thesick said. "This creature lives inside human homes. Humans keep this apex predator as a companion. They allow it to sleep in their beds, to roam freely through their dwellings, to interact with their offspring." The class erupted into confused noise. "That cannot be correct," someone called out. "Are they controlling them somehow?" another voice demanded. "With technology, with chemicals?" "Perhaps the humans have removed their natural weapons," a Velthari student suggested. Kira listened to the chaos with a strange feeling in her chest. She looked at the hologram of the cat, at its sharp teeth and predator eyes, and she thought about Machi. Machi was her cat back home. He was orange and fluffy and afraid of plastic bags. He liked to sleep on her pillow and steal pieces of cheese from her sandwiches. He was the sweetest creature she had ever known. And everyone in this room thought he was a monster. Without really meaning to, Kira started to laugh. The room went quiet, and everyone stared at her. "Miss Chen," Professor Thesick asked, "do you have something to share?" Kira stood up slowly, her tablet in her hand. "Yes, Professor," she said. I think there has been a misunderstanding." She pulled up a picture of Machi on her tablet and held it up for everyone to see. "That is not a predator," she said. "That is my baby." The classroom froze. Nobody moved. The entire classroom seemed to have stopped breathing. Every alien eye was fixed on Kira's tablet, where the image of Machi glowed softly in the dim light. The cat in the picture was lying on his back on a blue couch. His orange fur was fluffy and soft, and his white paws were curled against his chest. His eyes were half closed in complete contentment, and his pink tongue was sticking out just a little bit. He looked ridiculous. He looked adorable. He looked nothing like the deadly predator in the hologram above. "Your baby," Professor Thesick repeated slowly. His translator had rendered the word perfectly, and he seemed to be struggling to understand it. "You used a term of familial endearment. Are you saying that this creature is your offspring?" No, Kira said quickly. "He is not my biological child. I just call him that because I love him. His name is Machi and he is my cat. I have had him since he was a tiny kitten." The confusion in the room grew even deeper. "You love it?" asked a Drelmery student from the back. "You love a predator?" "He is not a predator to me," Kira explained. "I mean, yes, he hunts bugs sometimes and he once caught a mouse, but mostly he just sleeps and eats and purrs and follows me around the house. He is scared of the vacuum cleaner. He runs away when I sneeze too loud." She swiped to another picture on her tablet. This one showed Machi sitting in a cardboard box that was clearly too small for him. His fur spilled over the edges, and he looked very proud of himself. "He loves boxes," Kira said. "He will sit in any box, no matter how small. I do not know why, he just does." The Cathari student who had questioned her earlier leaned forward, his feathers ruffled with confusion. "But why?" he asked. "Why do you keep this creature in your home? Does it guard you? Does it provide labor? Does it produce something you need?" "No," Kira said. "He does not do anything useful. He just exists, and I love him for existing." The room fell silent again. Kira could see that they did not understand. How could they? The concept was so natural to her, so obvious that she had never had to explain it before. "Let me show you something," she said. She began to swipe through more pictures on her tablet, and as she did, she held it up for the class to see. Here was a golden retriever wearing a birthday hat, surrounded by humans who were singing to it. Here was a hamster in a tiny sweater, sitting in a small human hand. Here was a child hugging a horse around the neck, both of them looking perfectly happy. Here was an old woman with a parrot on her shoulder, the bird pressing its head against her cheek. "These are called pets," Kira explained. "Humans keep them, not for work, not for food, not for protection. We keep them because we love them. We take care of them, we feed them, we play with them, we sleep next to them. When they are sick, we take them to doctors. When they die, we cry for them." "You cry?" Yili's voice was barely a whisper. "You mourn them, like you would mourn your own family." "Yes," Kira said softly, "exactly like that. When my first cat died, I was sad for months. He was my friend. He had been with me since I was a little girl." Yili's large eyes glistened with something that might have been tears. "But these creatures could hurt you," she said. "The dog in that picture, it has teeth. It could bite." "Some dogs do bite," Kira admitted. "But most of them do not. Most of them just want to be near us. They want to be loved and they want to love us back." She swiped to one more picture. This one showed Kira herself as a young child, maybe 5 or 6 years old. She was sitting on grass in a sunny garden, and her arms were wrapped around a golden retriever that was nearly twice her size. The dog's tongue was hanging out, and its tail was blurred from wagging. Young Kira's face was pressed against the dog's fur, and she was smiling with pure joy. "That was my first dog," Kira said. "His name was Buddy. He was my best friend when I was growing up. He protected me, not because he was trained to, but because he loved me. And I loved him more than I can explain." The classroom was very quiet now, but it was a different kind of quiet than before. Professor Thesick stepped closer to look at the image. His compound eyes reflected the picture of the small human child embracing the large predator. "The child in this image," he said slowly, "she is at an extremely vulnerable age. She would have no ability to defend herself if the creature decided to attack." "Buddy would never have hurt me," Kira said firmly. "Never. He slept at the foot of my bed every night. He walked me to school. He let me climb on him and pull his ears and dress him up in silly costumes. He was patient and kind and gentle." "But how did you know?" the professor asked. "How could you trust a predator with a child?" Kira thought about the question carefully. "I think," she said finally, "humans and dogs have been together for so long that we understand each other. We changed together over thousands and thousands of years. Dogs learn to read our faces and our emotions. We learn to read theirs. It is not about control or power. It is about trust and love." She looked around the classroom at all the alien faces staring back at her. "We do this with many animals," she continued. "Cats, dogs, horses, birds, rabbits, hamsters, fish. We bring them into our homes, into our families. We give them names and celebrate their birthdays and take pictures of them being silly. We love them." Yili stood up from her seat, her small body trembling. "Even the ones that could kill you?" she asked. "The bears, the wolves, the crocodiles, do you love them too?" Kira smiled sadly. "We do not keep those as pets," she said. "But yes, in a way, we love them too. We protect them. We build special places for them to live safely. We try to make sure they do not go extinct, because a world without them would be less beautiful." Yili took one small step toward Kira, then another. "I do not understand," she said, "but I want to. Will you tell me more?" Kira felt warmth spread through her chest. "Of course," she said, "I will tell you everything." The academy gardens were beautiful at this hour. Artificial sunlight streamed through the transparent dome above, falling on plants from a dozen different worlds. Blue flowers from Velthara grew beside red grasses from Keth. Water trickled through channels that fed the aquatic plants the Drelmery students tended with such care. It was a peaceful place, a place for thinking and talking. Kira sat on a bench made of something that looked like stone but felt warm to the touch. Around her, a small group of students had gathered, their eyes curious, and their bodies no longer quite so tense with fear. Yili sat closest to her, just an arm's length away. The little Urani had not stopped asking questions since class had ended. Behind Yili stood Rithais, a Kethari with deep purple feathers and sharp golden eyes. He had not said much yet, but Kira could tell he was listening to every word. 2 Drelmery had joined them as well, and even a young Velthari named Keswick had come to hear what the human had to say. "Tell us from the beginning," Yili urged. "How did this start? How did humans first begin to keep predators as companions?" Kira leaned back and thought about how to explain something so old and so deep. "It started with wolves," she said. "A very, very long time ago, before humans built cities or wrote books, our ancestors were hunters and so were the wolves. We hunted the same prey, and at first we were probably enemies." "What changed?" Keswick asked, his mandibles clicking with interest. "Nobody knows for certain," Kira admitted. "But we think that some wolves started to follow human camps, not to attack, but to eat the scraps we left behind. The wolves that were less afraid of humans got more food, and humans noticed that having wolves nearby was useful, because the wolves would warn them when other predators came close." "So it was a practical arrangement," Rithais said. His tone suggested he had expected something like this. "At first, yes," Kira agreed. "But then something else happened. Humans started to choose which wolves could stay and which had to leave. The friendly wolves, the gentle ones, the ones that played with human children, those were the ones we fed and protected. Over hundreds and hundreds of generations, those wolves became different from wild wolves." "Different how?" Yili asked. They became dogs, Kira said with a smile. Their faces changed to be more expressive. Their ears became floppy. Their tails wagged when they were happy. They learned to understand human words and human gestures, and humans learned to understand them too. She paused, thinking about Buddy, about all the dogs she had known throughout her life. It was not just about survival anymore, she continued. It became about love. Humans and dogs started to need each other, not just for hunting or protection, but for companionship. A dog who lost its human would grieve. A human who lost their dog would grieve. We became family. The Drelmery students exchanged glances. One of them, a female with pale blue scales, spoke up. "And the cats, how did they come to live with you?" "Cats were different," Kira laughed. "Cats sort of invited themselves. When humans started growing grain and storing it, mice came to eat the grain, and cats came to hunt the mice. We did not choose them. They chose us." "They chose you," Rithai sounded skeptical. "That is what it feels like," Kira said. "Even now, cats behave like they are doing us a favor by living with us. They are very proud creatures. They sleep where they want, they eat when they want, they ignore us when they want. But they also curl up in our laps and purr and head bump us when they are happy. They love us in their own way." Yili's ears had perked up with fascination. "And the horses?" she asked. "The large creatures that humans ride." "Horses were partners in a different way," Kira explained. "They carried us across great distances. They helped us farm our fields. They pulled our wagons and carried our soldiers. For thousands of years, human civilization depended on horses." "But you said pets are not for work," Keswick pointed out. "Most horses worked, yes," Kira acknowledged. "But we also loved them. Humans would brush their coats and braid their manes and give them treats. When a horse was too old to work, many humans would keep caring for it anyway. And now, in modern times, most people who have horses keep them purely for companionship. They ride them for fun, not for need." She showed them more pictures on her tablet. A girl feeding an apple to a gentle gray horse. A man resting his forehead against his horse's nose. A horse and a dog playing together in a field. "We did not just tame these animals," Kira said softly. "We grew together, we changed each other. Dogs taught us about loyalty and unconditional love. Cats taught us about independence and dignity. Horses taught us about trust and partnership. They made us better." Rithais finally stepped forward, his feathers rippling with what might have been emotion. "And the predators that kill humans?" he asked. "The bears, the sharks, the crocodiles. Your people do not just tolerate them. According to the databases, you actively protect them. You spend resources to keep them alive. Why?" Kira looked up at the artificial sky and thought about Earth, so far away. "Because they are part of our world," she said. "A world without wolves would be missing something important. A world without sharks would have sick oceans. Every creature has a place, even the dangerous ones. We protect them because we understand that now." "But they can kill you," Rithais pressed. "Yes," Kira agreed. "And sometimes they do, but that does not make us hate them. When a shark attacks a swimmer or a bear kills a hiker, most humans do not call for all sharks or all bears to be destroyed. We are sad for the person who died, but we also understand that we entered their territory. We accept the risk because the world would be emptier without them." There was a long silence in the garden. Then Yili spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "You love things that can hurt you," she said, "just because they exist." "Yes," Kira said simply. "I think that is what love means sometimes. Accepting something completely, dangers and all, and choosing to care for it anyway." Behind them, a new voice spoke. "That is perhaps the most remarkable thing I have ever heard a student say." They all turned to see Professor Thesick standing at the edge of the garden, his compound eyes gleaming in the artificial light. "Professor," Keswick exclaimed, "how long have you been listening?" "Long enough," the professor replied. He walked slowly toward them, his 4 arms folded thoughtfully. "Miss Chen, I have a question for you." Kira stood up respectfully. Yes, Professor. In my many years of study, I have classified hundreds of species, Thesic said. I have encountered predators and prey, parasites and symbionts, creatures of every kind. But I have never encountered a species quite like yours. He stopped in front of her, and for a moment she thought she saw something like wonder in his alien eyes. How do you do it? He asked. How do you look at a universe full of teeth and claws and choose to call it beautiful? Kira thought about the question for a long time. I think, she finally said, it is because we know how short life is. We know that everything we love will someday be gone, so we try to love as much as we can while we can. Even the things that scare us, even the things that could hurt us, because the alternative, living in fear and loneliness, that seems so much worse. Professor Thesic was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. I think, he said, I may need to revise my classification of your species. 1 week had passed since that day in the garden. Kira walked into classroom 7 feeling different than she had before. Her steps were lighter, her shoulders more relaxed. The other students still noticed her when she entered, but their looks had changed. Where once she had seen fear, now she saw something closer to curiosity, maybe even respect. Yili was already in her usual seat, and when she saw Kira, her long ears lifted in what Kira had learned was an Urani smile. The small alien had saved the seat next to her, and Kira settled into it with a grateful nod. Good morning, Yili said. Good morning, Kira replied. Are you ready for class? I think so, Yili said. I heard the professor has something special planned for today. Before Kira could ask what she meant, the door opened and Professor Thesic entered. The Velthari professor moved to the central platform with his usual precise grace, but Kira thought she detected something different in his manner. He seemed almost excited. Good morning, students, he announced. Before we continue with our regular curriculum, I have an important update to share. He touched a control, and the holographic display came to life. But instead of showing a predator species, it displayed a document, an official classification record. Kira saw the header and felt her breath catch. Species Homo sapiens human. As many of you know, Professor Thesic began, humans have been classified as Class 7 pursuit predators since their first contact with the Galactic Union. This classification was based on their evolutionary history, their hunting methods, and their physical capabilities. He paused, and his compound eyes swept across the room until they found Kira. However, after recent discussions with our human exchange student, and after considerable research into human behavior and culture, I have submitted a proposal to the Xenobiology Council. That proposal has been accepted. The display changed, and new text appeared beneath the original classification. Additional classification, symbiotic bond former, status, unique, notes, only known species to form emotional pair bonds with creatures across the full predator-prey spectrum, including species that pose genuine threat to human life. A murmur of surprise rippled through the classroom. Let me explain what this means, Thesic continued. Most species in the galaxy have simple relationships with other creatures. They dominate them, flee from them, consume them, or eliminate them. Competition and survival drive almost all interspecies interactions. He gestured at the display. Humans are different. They form emotional connections with other species that serve no obvious survival purpose. They take predators into their homes and call them family. They mourn prey animals and predators alike when they die. They spend enormous resources protecting creatures that could kill them. Thesic turned to face the class fully. In all my years of study, I have never encountered anything like this. The human capacity for interspecies bonding is, as far as I can determine, unique in the known galaxy. Kira felt her face grow warm as students turned to look at her. But this time, the attention did not feel threatening. It felt almost like admiration. Perhaps more importantly, the professor added, this capacity may explain something that has puzzled researchers since first contact. Humans are not the strongest species, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced. And yet, they have spread across their world and now into the stars with remarkable success. He paused dramatically. Perhaps it is because they do not see the universe as something to be conquered or fled from. They see it as something to be loved, and that, I believe, may be their greatest strength. The classroom burst into applause, a strange sound made up of clapping hands and clicking mandibles and rustling feathers. Kira felt tears prick at her eyes, and she blinked them away quickly. Yili reached over with one of her small hands and squeezed Kira's arm gently. The gesture said more than words ever could. After class ended, students filed out slowly, many of them stopping to look at Kira with new eyes. A few even approached her to ask questions, their earlier fear replaced by genuine curiosity. Kira answered as many as she could, explaining about dogs and cats and horses and all the creatures humans loved. She showed pictures and told stories and watched alien faces shift from confusion to wonder. Finally, the classroom was empty, except for Kira and Yili. The Urani girl stood before Kira, her large dark eyes shining with an emotion that needed no translator. "I want to show you something," Yili said softly. She pulled out her own tablet and opened an image file. The picture that appeared showed a small creature with 6 legs, soft gray fur, and big dark eyes. It looked a little like a cross between a mouse and a guinea pig, but with an extra pair of legs and longer ears. "This is called a Velshi," Yili explained. "They live on my homeworld. They are not dangerous at all. They eat plants and seeds and they hide from predators." "It is beautiful," Kira said honestly. "I had one when I was very young," Yili continued. "Before the Urani joined the Union, before we left our planet, she was small and warm and soft. I called her Tilla. She used to sleep in my hands." Yili's voice had grown thick with emotion. "I did not understand then what she was to me," she said. "On my world, we do not have a word for what humans call pets. Velshi are just wild animals that sometimes live near Urani villages. But Tilla was different. She came to me, she trusted me, and I loved her." Tears were now rolling down Yili's furred cheeks. "When she died, I was so sad, but nobody understood why. She was just a Velshi, they said, just a small animal, but she was more than that to me." Kira reached out and took Yili's hands in her own. "She was your friend," Kira said gently. "She was your family, she was your pet, even if you did not have a word for it." Yili nodded, unable to speak. "You do understand," Kira said. "You always did. You just did not know that anyone else felt the same way." The 2 young women stood there in the empty classroom, hands clasped, separated by the vast gulf between their species, but connected by something far older and deeper than words. Finally, Yili wiped her eyes and managed a small smile. "Can I see a picture of Machi again?" she asked. Kira laughed and pulled out her tablet. She found her favorite picture, the one where Machi was sleeping in a sunbeam with his paws curled and his whiskers twitching. "Here he is," she said, "my silly orange baby." Yili looked at the picture for a long moment. Then she pulled up the image of Tilla again and held her tablet next to Kira's. An orange cat from Earth and a small gray creature from a world across the galaxy. 2 very different animals from 2 very different places, but both of them had been loved. Both of them had been family. "I will remember Tilla better now," Yili said quietly, "because you helped me understand what she was." "And I will think of her too," Kira promised, "because she was important to you." They stood there together as the artificial sun continued its slow journey across the dome above. 2 students from different worlds, brought together by the oldest and strangest magic in the universe. The magic of love for small, warm creatures who ask for nothing but affection and give everything they have in return. Perhaps humans were not the monsters the galaxy had expected. Perhaps they were something far stranger and far more wonderful. Perhaps they were proof that the universe, for all its teeth and claws and dangers, still had room for tenderness. And perhaps, in time, the other species of the galaxy would learn what humans had always known, that the bravest thing anyone can do is look at something that could hurt them and choose to love it anyway. The classroom was empty now, but it was not silent. Two voices were laughing together, sharing stories of beloved pets across the vast and beautiful darkness of space. And somewhere, on a little blue world called Earth, an orange cat named Machi stretched in a sunbeam and purred, completely unaware that he had helped change the galaxy.